Deadpool and Wolverine a week ago. It's time to stop and rank all 13 X Men universe films. Welcome back to Max Talks Movies. My name is Max Zinenberg. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and ring that bell. I talk all things movies, TV shows. I do out of theater reactions, a box office show every single Tuesday, and movie franchise rankings like these. So please subscribe, ring the bell if you're new to the channel, comment down below. Let me know your ranking of the X-Men franchise. I'm not including New Mutants, but let me know if you include New Mutants, where does it add into your list? What is your franchise ranking? Did you grow up with the X-Men universe with Fox? Did you not? Do you like this franchise? Do you not? Let me know in the comment section down below. Love responding to all you guys. And also, please like the video, the thumbs up button. That's how you support this channel. So as I said, I have not seen New Mutants, so it's the only movie that's not on this list. I had to do a full rewatch. I was about to watch New Mutants, and then my schedule got kind of jam packed here with a move, so I didn't get a chance to watch it before this video. But I did rewatch. I've seen all these movies a billion times, so I'm so excited to talk about the X Men franchise. So without further ado, let's get into my ranking of the top 13, as we know, X Men universe films, including Deadpool and Wolverine. So coming in at number 13 for um, me is X-Men Origins Wolverine. This is a film that you can't blame a lot for being how bad it is because of a writer's strike and how the script basically was there, that it wasn't. And then with the writer's strike, they couldn't really put things back together. But this just isn't a great origin story for Logan, and it's just such an unsatisfying finale. You get the fight with Wolverine and Sabretooth against, the version of Deadpool that you see behind me, and it's an exciting fight, but then because if this movie happened and Logan would remember so many things, and then the conclusion is Logan being shot in the head by Stryker, so with adamantium, so he doesn't remember the events of this movie. So there's interesting things going on. Sabretooth played by Liev Schreiber is very interesting. Obviously, this movie started the one of the best castings of all time with Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. Getting Logan, seeing him with his relationship with Kayla, played by Lynn Collins, is also very interesting. Um, but for me, there's some really bad CGI. The movie has comedy, but it really isn't that funny. It does feel like at times Deadpool, when he is able to talk, in a totally different movie. Even like the scene with Logan and the sink, I just never enjoyed. The fact that Logan goes to these people's houses and they just get murdered and he just kind of moves on without any emotion. This one just always rings flat to me. I think it's the worst made of the X-Men movies, and that's why it comes in at number 13. At number 12 for me is X-Men Apocalypse. This was a movie that I was very excited for. We were riding the wave of this new franchise of the films with First Class, and also the huge success of Days of Future Past. And I was very excited to see them tackle Apocalypse, one of the most iconic X-Men villains, getting Oscar Isaac. But again, of the new X-Men films, this was easily the worst made of them. And it's also just all over the place. The movie is nearly 2.5 hours, and I don't think it has any business being that long. The thing that stands out the most about this film was in a positive way, is Magneto with his family, and that leading to him turning again. That was a heartbreaking scene, and that sequence is one of the best sequences in maybe any of the X-Men movies, with Magneto losing his wife and child really in his arms. A horrific scene, and still is something memorable from this film. But other than that, this movie is very lazily written, where there's a scene where Apocalypse, who finally comes out of his whatever tomb, and he touches a TV, and young Storm tells him, what are you doing? He says, learning, as he's touching the TV. Apocalypse is such an underwhelming villain for so as iconic as he is. This is also the first time where you get to see Jennifer Lawrence start not really giving a crap about playing Raven and this character. She just seems so disinterested in the character. Yes, we get a good Quicksilver scene. I love the Logan cameo we got in this film, but still, Storm, Braddock, and Psylocke, Havoc. There's so many characters they add on. Angel. Jubilee that just don't get anything to do in this movie. And this movie does try to recapture the magic of First Class, having a much younger team as well, other than the original group, and that doesn't really work for me as well. So Apocalypse, a very underwhelming film. Didn't really realize how long it was again whenever we watched it a couple weeks ago. So X-Men Apocalypse coming in at number 12. Sorry. At number 11 is X-Men X-Men, The Last Stand. This is definitely a whimper to the original X-Men trilogy, where they're just trying to combine too many major plot lines into one movie. You have the cure or maybe uncure of mutants in the world. You have the Jean Grey Phoenix story going on in this movie, and plus you get a couple major deaths in this movie with Cyclops and Professor X both being killed off in this movie. But none of it you feel like you sit with at all during this movie, especially Cyclops, who you get the return of Jean Grey in a very cool scene, and then they just kiss and then they go off screen, and it just seems like no one cares that Scott Summers gets killed off in this movie. The Professor X death has a little bit more action into it, and you get to see a little bit more of that friendship with Professor X and Magneto in this movie. Again, when he gets killed off, we have to completely move on to the next thing. We kind of get the beginnings of seeing the X-Men really as a team in this movie, with seeing who's the leader between Logan and Storm. But again, there's just too many subplots. Magneto and his crew just completely drop Mystique in this movie. It's a cool scene, but then Mystique, who's such an important element of the first two movies, it just feels like they didn't have anything for Mystique in this movie. They were just kind of like, well, just write her off halfway through the movie and lead her and not have her in the third act of the film. I do get like the chemistry between Famke Janssen and Logan, and Hugh Jackman. It worked for me, but this movie just is so unfocused. I think it's probably the most unfocused out of any of the X-Men franchise, because it's trying to tackle so many different things. Beast is now at the government. We haven't seen the original two films. Rogue just seems like such an afterthought in this movie. There's so many miscues. So X-Men The Last Stand comes in at number 11. At number 10 for me is Dark Phoenix, which to me is the most boring of the X-Men franchise. I've seen it 3 or 4 times, and I don't think this movie is an atrocity that I think a lot of people think it is. I think it's still very well made. The train sequence, which is actually one of the reshoots of the movie, is the best part of the film. Getting to see all the X-Men in this train fight scene, like that a lot. I still really enjoy the young cast in here. I think Sophie Turner was well cast as Jean Grey, but again, they messed up this storyline now twice in the live action films. I think another big problem from a writing perspective is that Professor X acts totally out of character, and where he is pretty much a jerk for the first 80% of this movie. And that just doesn't feel like Professor X to me whatsoever. The fact that he lied to Jean Grey about so many important things. And if he would have just told people about it, again, they're at a point where, once again, Jennifer Lawrence does not care about playing Raven or Mystique. So they have to kill her off halfway through the movie. And that leads to everyone hating Professor X because he's honestly to blame. An absolute waste having Jessica Chastain enter this franchise as one of the most forgettable villains of the entire franchise with this alien thing. Never cared. A waste of Jessica Chastain's talent and time. And also, I loved Quicksilver in the previous 2 movies, but he just stays at the X Mansion the entire movie. Compared to, I did care about Famke Janssen and James Marsden. I don't care as much with Sophie Turner and Ty Sheridan. And Magneto is not even in the movie until an hour in, and it kind of just does the same thing as always, which is, of course, he's on opposite sides of Charles, and he has to reunite with Charles at the end of the movie. So this one is a boring watch. It's not awful. There's some really good things in here, but there's also some wildly bad things as well, as always, in Dark Phoenix. When we get to number 9, that is when we get The Wolverine. This is the first film with the team of James Mangold and Hugh Jackman. I do have some genuine fun having Wolverine, a Wolverine samurai-like movie. And I think the first 2 acts of the film really deliver on that. So really fun action sequences. The bombing scene with Hugh Jackman being in that hole and him having to hold up, take the burn for this person. Really enjoyed that. You get Yukio, played by Ryla Fukushima, who's very good in the movie as well. Hiroki Sanada is in this movie as well. There's some really good castings and action set pieces with hand-to-hand combat in the first two acts of the movie. What has always dragged down the Wolverine for me is the third act boss fight with Silver Samurai and Logan. It just feels like we're in a totally different movie. I feel like the studio forced Manuel, hey, we need a big CGI action set piece at some point, and they made it the last fight scene with Silver Samurai, a very old man, and Logan. That whole third act just always pulls me out of the movie because the first two acts are very well shot and acted and action-wise so well done because it's very much hand-to-hand combat. Yes, there's adamantium claws coming out of someone, but it's more hand-to-hand combat more than Silver Samurai, which is an old man in a big gray suit. So that whole thing pulls me out. But you could definitely, and I do also appreciate in this movie the Jean Grey dreams flashback sequences with Logan. The fact that that's kind of haunted him since the events of Last Stand. But still, I don't love this movie. I think it's okay. The first two acts are really solid, but I think the back half of this movie does not deliver on the original setup. When we get to number 8, this might be my hottest take, Deadpool 2. I enjoy Deadpool 2. It's a fun movie, but I think it's still a very forgettable film. That this, to me, is very similar to what Guardians Volume 2 was to Guardians 1. For that franchise, this movie just goes for every single joke and plot line and bit instead of being a little bit more focused and more grounded like the original Deadpool was. I love the casting of Josh Brolin as Cable, and when he was the villain of the movie, it really worked. But he kind of turns to being a good guy towards the end of the movie really quickly, without any question. Still, Zazie Beetz, one of the best castings of the X-Men franchise as Domino. You do get good emotion in the beginning of the movie when Vanessa dies and what Wade has to do post that. But I still think this movie still is tons of fun. I laughed throughout the entire movie. I always enjoy myself watching Deadpool 2, but I just don't feel as invested in what's actually going on in the story. The X-Force bit, there's a lot of bits and things I like about this. This one's a frustrating one because I want to love this movie because I just enjoy it so much when I watch it. But every time I think about what the plot of the movie was with the Gillian Dennison with Fire Fist and Juggernaut, there's so many elements that just don't hit home for me. So Deadpool 2 comes in at number 8. Coming in number 7 is the original X-Men film from 2000, now 24 years ago. This franchise started one of the core building blocks for superhero fandom now and superhero films now was the 2000 X-Men film. And while, yes, I think this movie definitely does not hold up as well as any other films in the franchise, it still casts some of the most iconic actors as one of the most iconic characters of all time. When you have Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen and Hugh Jackman and Halle Berry and Rebecca Romijn. There's so many iconic castings in this film, and it's just kind of jaw-dropping to go back, rewatch the movie, understand what the landscape of the superhero genre was, and seeing all of these major actors take these roles. Hugh Jackman was an absolute nobody, and the fact that he's become, for me, my favorite superhero casting of all time. It is amazing to watch Hugh Jackman. I love Logan and Rogue in this movie. They have a really good dynamic. Now, Rogue in the third act, she just feels like a plot device more than an actual character towards the third act. But the beginning of the movie, I enjoyed Hugh Jackman and Anna Paquin's chemistry. Yes, Halle Berry is not doing a very good accent in this movie and definitely pulls me out of Storm in this film when she drops it in X2. It's a lot better. But there's such great acting and cast, and the idea of what would the government do with mutants and how do they look on mutants, comparing to how Professor X sees mutants. And then Magneto and Professor X are just some of the most dynamic characters ever in Marvel characters. And when you have Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, their chemistry is just so off the charts. And you understand both sides to their arguments on what they want people to think about them, and do they even care about that? And how do they want to live their lives? And while, yes, Magneto's the clear villain, I guess, of the movie, you do understand both Charles and Eric's side to that story. So, yes, this movie doesn't have the greatest action, the greatest plot going on. I don't really love the Statue of Liberty fight scene at the end. I think it's passable. But I still think overall you have such good essence of story here, great castings. It's such a fun movie to watch. So X-Men 2000 comes in at number 7. At number 6 for me is X2, X-Men United. I have so much fun with X2. I think this was the perfect follow up to the original X-Men. Obviously, the Nightcrawler president scene is so fantastic. One of the best opening scenes ever to a comic book movie. But still, this movie just has so much fun elements. Halle Berry's finally doing a really good job as Storm in this movie, even better than she was in the original X-Men. Brian Cox is so threatening as a non-mutant, as William Stryker in this movie, the first iteration we get of Stryker in this franchise. And it's very different from the first film, which the first film, yes, there were senators and things, but it mostly was mutant on mutant action. But having a villainous non-mutant was the perfect addition to throw a wrench into the X-Men. Um, I really enjoyed Brian Cox in this film. As I just said, he's fantastic. And it's always, for me, is the perfect sequel to the original X-Men. It has way more better action scenes. Magneto in the jail scenes are fantastic. So X2, X-Men United comes in at number 6. When we get into the top 5, that's when we get Deadpool and Wolverine. I still love this movie. I love all top 5 movies on this list. Deadpool Wolverine, I think, is a really great movie in my opinion. I think the bits are very funny. Every movie has enough heart in it. The cameos aren't just cameos; they feel like roles in the film that fit the plot line very well. The action is tons of fun, including a long one take through a bus that I really enjoyed. I was laughing. I was just enjoying myself in the theater throughout the entire film, watching, for me, the two of the top 5 best superhero castings of all time, and seeing Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds in a buddy cop movie. The chemistry was off the chart between Reynolds and Jackman. I could watch so many more things with them in it. Um, yes, I do think sometimes Cassandra Nova kind of gets lost in the mix, and sometimes I wish the movie did use some of the original Deadpool characters like Vanessa and that group of people from the original 2 films more in Deadpool and Wolverine, because I think they were still the heart of the film, even though they need to be in the movie more. But still, I love Deadpool and Wolverine. I've talked about this movie enough, but I do love Deadpool and Wolverine. Coming in at number 4 for me is a movie I absolutely adore, and that is X-Men: The First Class. This was the exact correct rejuvenation that the X-Men franchise needed, and just like the original film that casted iconic people in iconic roles, this movie did the exact same thing when you have James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender, Nicholas Hoult, Jennifer Lawrence, all in just such iconic roles. And again, this is J-Law right before she did Hunger Games. You have McAvoy and Fassbender not at their heights, especially Nicholas Hoult as well. Kevin Bacon is really entertaining as Shaw, and you feel that personal rivalry between Magneto and Shaw throughout the entire film. That opening scene with Magneto, basically watching his mother get killed in front of him, that unlocking his powers. You get the history between Charles and Eric, and how that friendship can bond, and how that friendship can, not continue towards the end of the movie. Mystique has, for me, in this movie and Days of Future Past, we're not to get to, she has my favorite arcs in both movies. And here, she's trying to understand why, if she wants to be her blue self in public and just be who she is in public. And obviously, Charles always makes her go into her human form, and the idea of why that's so tempting, why Eric is so tempting for her, that he just wants to be immune and live his life how he looks and how he is, and how he sees the beauty in her when she's in her original form, which she never got that stuff from Charles. So I really enjoyed that. I also really like Rose Byrne as well as McTaggart. Really good dynamic with Charles and that romantic fling. The action scene at the end with the bombs was tons of fun. I just love the movie. The scene where Eric, this is the best Magneto movie, in my opinion. Fassbender is on fire in this film. The scene where he goes to the bank and he pulls the guy's tooth out to get particular answers on where Shaw is. The bar scene with trying to get answers on where Shaw is. Magneto is just on fire in this movie. And I do love X-Men: The First Class. At number 3 for me is the original Deadpool film. This is still One of the most original, fresh ideas for a superhero film of all time, and such an underdog story. How it went from Fox didn't want to do it, then Ryan Reynolds and his team leaking the test footage, and everyone wanted to see a Deadpool movie, a rated R superhero film, just had never been done before in this way. And Ryan Reynolds and the team absolutely deliver. The film still has such memorable jokes, action scenes. Um, it's not as deep as I say the first two films on this list, but it fits perfectly for Deadpool. That it's such a grounded story in reality for a lot of you care about Wade and Vanessa as a romantic relationship throughout the entire movie. Ajax is always a very fun villain played by Ed Skrein. You still have Dopinder and Weasel and a lot of fun characters. Negasonic Teenage Warhead and Colossus. So many memorable action set pieces in the film. When even like Deadpool goes after tries to fight Colossus, very funny. The X-Men jokes. You just care about Deadpool. He's kind of like a jerk, a good jerk for the first 20, 25 minutes of the movie, really until he meets Vanessa and him going on that murderous path. I do love this movie. I watch this movie all the time. I always enjoy the original Deadpool. At number two for me is X-Men Days of Future Past. And for me, everyone complains about multiverses. And I think, honestly, of the superhero genre, this might be the best way to use a multiverse in a logical way. I think this and No Way Home definitely separate themselves from the rest of the multiverse films, but I even like this movie film more than No Way Home at times, maybe just as much as No Way Home and a little bit more than Endgame. I love Days of Future Past. The fact that we're in this post-apocalyptic world with the original cast and them even saying Logan into the past to get to meet our younger cast and see a broken Charles Xavier. We have not seen that up to this point in the franchise with broken down Charles Xavier. James McAvoy does a really good job that this is still telling you that this is still Charles Xavier just at his lowest point where there's no school and he's just taking these shots in order to not be immune anymore and just to be able to walk and be a normal person. You have Mystique on the run in this movie, and that's why Mystique is so unfortunate that Jennifer Lawrence lost faith and care for this character after this movie because she's so great in this movie. And Mystique is the MVP of Days of Future Past with her dynamic, both with Eric and with Charles. And the fact that she kind of just has to do sometimes her own thing. But the scene with the airport where Charles is trying to communicate with Mystique, and very much a powerful scene at the end with Charles and her when she's about to kill Peter Dinklage's character, and then she obviously turns out to not do it in Trask. The action scenes are a lot of fun. The Quicksilver scene, one of the best action scenes you'll see in any superhero film of all time, just so well done. Seeing again the mixture of the old cast and the young cast, the true Charles scene is so cool and well done, and something I never would ever expect to see in a movie like this, but you did. I just adore this movie. The timeline, yes, it gets muddled after this movie, but it made sense on a post-apocalyptic original franchise moving into a broken down younger franchise and Logan being at the center of it. I just really loved that. So X-Men Days of Future Past, I adore this movie. It's a near perfect film for me. It's at number two. And at number one for me is, of course, Logan. What a powerful superhero film. One of the best performances of all time with Hugh Jackman, Patrick Stewart, Daphne Keane. The movie is so grounded, very serious, seeing a broken down Logan and Professor X. And Logan kind of go on this journey where he doesn't accept himself. He doesn't accept the world after the X-Men die, even though he still cares about Charles Xavier. And he finds this girl and he finally finds something to live for. And that was trying to make sure that she lives a life that he never had. That was really well done. I love Stephen Merchant as Caliban as well. This movie is very emotional with the third act and then with Logan fighting X-24. The twist, some remember in the theater not really realizing when Logan stabs and kills Professor X that it was X-24. Such a heartbreaking death because they meet such a nice family. And that time, compared to X-Men Origins Wolverine, you actually feel bad for this family being involved in such a horrible situation. Daphne Keane holds her own as X-23. in this film. The first time you see her in action at Logan and Professor X's house, so cool, so well done. The movie is violent. The opening scene with Logan as a driver beating up all those people, so cool. It's so gritty. I just love rewatching this. Richard D. Grant's having a lot of fun in the villain role, but there's so much heart, and obviously you feel so much emotions seeing this Logan, for the final time. So overall, I adore Logan. It's a near masterpiece in my opinion, one of the best comic book movies of all time. And Logan comes in at number 1. So what are your thoughts on the X-Men franchise? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll see you guys soon.